You look at the world right now, and the contradiction we're living through is just blinding.
Oh, it really is.
Right. I mean, think about your daily life. We
Right.
have artificial intelligence that can write complex software code in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, literally seconds.
And we have high-speed internet blanketing the globe, connecting billions of people. We have these, massive technological explosions happening every single week. Biotechnology, robotics,
Mm.
aerospace.
We should be living in a golden age.
Exactly. By all accounts, we should be in an absolute golden age of innovation,
Yeah.
unprecedented prosperity. But then you step outside.
Yeah.
You look at the physical world, and you realize that global economic growth is actually stalling out.
It's grinding to a halt.
Society just feels like it's slowing down.
Mm.
Younger generations are struggling harder than ever to build wealth, to buy a home. I mean, we have cranes that can lift the entire skyscrapers. We have software that can design smart cities.
Right.
Yet the time and cost it takes to build a bridge or lay down a train track or construct a simple apartment building, it's skyrocketed.
It's a massive problem.
We're driving a Ferrari, but the parking brake is ripped all the way up. Why? Why is the engine of human progress suddenly bleeding out efficiency?
That is the defining economic question of our era. Economists call it the productivity paradox.
The productivity paradox.
Yeah. Since the dawn of the 21st century, across almost all developed nations, the growth rate of our actual efficiency has just plummeted.
And when you say efficiency, you mean?
Well, what economists measure to see how much output we get for a given amount of work and capital.
Okay.
We are throwing more money and better technology at our problems, but we're getting less and less out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're exactly right to point out the difference between the digital world and the physical world.
Right, because apps are getting faster, but building houses isn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To figure out why the gears of the global economy are grinding to a halt, we can't just look at tech companies. We have to look at the anchor of the physical economy.
Which brings us to the core mission of this deep dive. Today, we are looking at a landmark study. It was conducted by this brilliant research team, Nathan Chappell, Adam B. Jaffe, and Trinh.
And published by the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Right, the NBER. And their entire mission to crack the code of this 21st century productivity slump.
And the crazy part is how they did it.
Yeah, they completely ignored Silicon Valley. They ignored the software labs, the app developers. Instead, they took a magnifying glass to the ultimate efficiency black hole of the modern world.
The construction industry.
The physical, gritty, real-world construction industry. Which makes perfect sense when you think about it. Construction is the industry that dictates the foundational cost of living for everyone.
Yeah, it builds the hospitals you're born in, the roads you drive on.
The houses you live in. But it is notoriously inefficient. Progress just seems to die on the job site.
It really does. And to figure out why, these researchers needed a level of visibility that economists usually only dream about. They needed a microscope capable of viewing an entire national economy, but at the granular level of individual human beings.
And they found exactly that in New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand. Because, economists usually have to rely on high-level surveys. They ask a company's HR department, how many people did you hire this year?
Or how much did you spend on materials?
Exactly. And the problem with surveys is that they are deeply flawed. People forget. Companies round their numbers. You just get this vague, blurry snapshot of the economy.
But New Zealand has something incredibly unique. It's called the Integrated Data Infrastructure, or the IDI.
Yes.
Let's spend a minute on this data set, because calling it a data set feels like calling the ocean a puddle.
It's massive.
It's essentially a unified nationwide tracking system. The researchers were given access to 12 solid years of data, tracking nearly 60,000 individual construction firms.
But they didn't just track the companies.
No, they tracked the workers. Every single worker. We are talking about millions of tax records, specifically the employer monthly schedules, and they are hard linked to the physical job history of every individual.
They mapped how human beings move.
Yeah, they didn't ask people questions on a survey. They followed the actual legally binding flow of money and labor.
It is an economic Skynet, completely anonymized for privacy, of course, but mathematically precise.
Right.
If a master electrician quit his job at a failing commercial contractor on a Tuesday and signed a new contract with a small residential startup on a Thursday.
The IDI logged it.
Exactly. It logged that movement. It mapped how human beings, and more importantly, the knowledge inside their heads, move through an economy over time.
And this allowed the research team to stop guessing. They could finally observe the actual mechanics of human labor.
And what they found?
Oh.
It completely shatters our understanding of how a healthy business actually works.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with the biggest assumption they shattered, the illusion of stability.
This is a huge one.
Right. If I asked anyone on the street, or even most corporate managers, how to fix an inefficient company, the answer is almost always about creating stability.
Oh, absolutely. You want workers to stay for 10 years. You want deep institutional memory.
Long-term contracts, low turnover,
Yeah.
a totally predictable environment.
Right.
But this data proves that assumption is fatal. Stability in the real-world physical economy actually equals stagnation.
Dead wrong.
Dead wrong. So break this down for us.
Well, we have this ingrained cultural bias, right? We
Really?
think high employee turnover is a sign of a toxic workplace or bad management.
Sure.
We crave stability because it feels safe. But when the researchers looked at the baseline reality of the New Zealand construction industry, they found an environment that operates in a constant, relentless state of upheaval.
A state of chaos.
Yes, they measured something called the annual job churn rate. This is the percentage of jobs that are either newly created or permanently destroyed in any given year.
Okay.
And the number they found for this industry was roughly 60%.
Wait, a 60% job churn rate every single year.
Every single year.
I need to make sure you, the listener, really grasp the scale of that.
Mm.
In any given 12-month period, nearly 6 out of 10 worker-firm relationships are completely temporary.
Yeah,
They are either brand new this year or they will be dead by next year.
that's the reality.
That is not a traditional workforce, that's a train station. If a modern tech company lost 60% of its staff in a year, there would be panic in the boardroom.
There'd be articles in the financial press about a crisis of leadership.
Exactly. Yet here, it's just the baseline reality of an entire national sector. So how on earth can an industry function, let alone be efficient, with extreme chaos?
Right. Well, it forces us to redefine what we consider healthy. This isn't senseless chaos. It's a violent, necessary
A
ecosystem.
violent ecosystem, I like that.
To understand why, we have to bring in the ghost of Joseph Schumpeter. He coined this term, creative destruction.
Creative destruction.
Yeah. Schumpeter argued that for a capitalist economy to grow and innovate, the old, inefficient structures must be continuously torn down to make way for the new.
Okay, so tear down the old to build the new.
Exactly. Imagine what happens in a perfectly stable economy when a company starts to fail. Maybe their management is outdated, or they can't adapt to new tools.
Right.
In a highly stable system with low churn, that failing company just limps along. It becomes what economists call a zombie firm.
A zombie firm. It doesn't grow, it doesn't innovate, but it doesn't quite die either.
Right. It makes just enough money to pay the interest on its debts and keep its workers employed.
And on paper, that looks like stability. Nobody's losing their job.
But beneath the surface, it's a disaster for the wider economy. Because that zombie firm is hoarding resources. It's trapping capital. And more importantly, it's trapping human labor.
Right, because skilled labor is the most precious resource on Earth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You cannot have highly skilled plumbers, master carpenters, brilliant project managers, all trapped inside a corporate shell that doesn't know how to use them.
So when a bad firm finally collapses, it's actually a good thing.
It acts as a release valve. The death of that firm forces those skilled workers out into the open market.
So the high churn rate, that 60% turnover, that's just the heartbeat. Pushing this vital talent pool out of the dying parts of the economy and into the emerging, more efficient sectors.
Exactly. The chaos is the cure.
Okay, so this sets up a fascinating dynamic. If dying firms are constantly bleeding out talented workers, who is taking them?
The new guys, the newborn companies.
The startups. But this creates a huge logical paradox for me. If I'm a brand new construction company, I have zero history. I have no relationships with suppliers, no massive line of credit from the bank.
No brand name.
Right. I basically have a pickup truck, some tools, and a newly registered LLC. How does a business with zero history beat an established giant that's been dominating for 20 years?
That's the exact question the research team wanted to answer. They used the data set to isolate the pure efficiency of every firm.
Okay.
They mathematically controlled for the amount of capital a firm had. They controlled for the number of workers. They stripped away all the variables to find the raw efficiency score.
How much output they get from a single unit of input.
Right. And the numbers are staggering. Brand new construction firms are, on average, more efficient than older, established firms by 6.1%.
Wow. A 6.1% premium in pure efficiency. right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate.
I mean, in the construction industry, profit margins are famously razor thin. They hover around 3 to 5%. So a 6% advantage, that's not just a nice bonus, that is absolute supremacy.
It's a fatal advantage.
It means the new firm can bid lower on projects, win more contracts, pay their workers better, and still take home a larger profit than the 20-year-old giant across town.
Exactly. They are doing more with less. But we have to be very careful here, because it is not a fairy tale. These newborn firms don't just magically open their doors on day one and operate perfectly.
There's a catch.
A huge catch.
Yeah.
The researchers uncovered a brutal reality hidden in the data. When they tracked these new firms month by month, they found something we can call the first-year curse.
The first-year curse.
Yeah. Yes, new firms eventually achieve that dominance. But in their very first year of existence, their productivity actually plummets by 7% compared to the industry average.
A 7% drop. So they actually start off significantly worse than everyone else.
Significantly worse.
Wow. We need to explore the mechanics of why that happens. What does that friction actually look like on the ground?
It's the friction of birth. It's a
Yeah.
bloody birth. Imagine starting a new commercial construction firm. You've hired a crew, you won your first contract to build a small retail space.
Okay.
But you don't have established credit with the lumberyard yet, so
Yeah.
you have to pay cash up front. That strains your payroll. Your foreman and your lead architect have never worked together before, so there are miscommunications. The architect assumes the foreman knows to use a specific grade of steel. The foreman orders the standard grade.
The materials arrive late, the sequencing is off, the drywall guys show up before the electricians finish wiring.
Exactly. Every single day is a battle against operational friction. Because the invisible habits and routines that make a company run smoothly, they just don't exist yet.
It's a period of severe chaos. And I imagine this is where a huge percentage of these newborn companies just die. They run out of cash before they figure it out.
Precisely. The first-year curse acts as a brutal filter. The friction destroys the weak. But
if they survive.
if a new firm can survive that initial bloodbath, if they can learn to communicate, establish supply chains, and hold on for just 4 years, the data shows they experience the survivor's edge.
The survivor's edge.
Yes, they recover that 7% deficit, and then they lock in a permanent compounding efficiency advantage of 7% over the old guard. They become the pillars of the national economy.
Which brings us to the dark mirror of this cycle. If the newborns represent the future, what does the end look like for the old guard?
It's grim.
Because the researchers didn't just track the births, they tracked the deaths. And they identified a chilling metric for dying companies.
Yeah, this part is fascinating. They found a phenomenon that appears in the data exactly 1 year before a firm collapses.
A highly robust statistical pattern. We can call it the shadow of death.
A shadow of death, exactly. The IDI dataset revealed that exactly 12 months before a firm officially closes its doors, its efficiency score drops by a staggering 13%.
13%.
And this drop is irreversible. Once a firm hits that decline, the math shows it's essentially walking dead.
It's just a zombie waiting to officially die. Let's think about the human behavior driving that number. It reminds me of rats fleeing a sinking ship.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. A company doesn't usually just explode overnight. It rots from the inside. The smartest, most capable workers on a job site, the project managers who handle the budgets, the veteran foremen, they are the first to smell the smoke.
Oh, absolutely. They notice when the boss starts delaying payroll by a day.
They notice when the company stops buying new equipment and just duct tapes the old tools together.
And because they are highly skilled and highly employable, they don't wait around for the ship to sink.
They use that 60% churn rate,
Exactly. They jump back into the open market and find a new job.
which just creates a vicious cycle for the dying firm. The best talent leaves, projects take longer, they lose more money, and that drives the efficiency score down that full 13%.
Yep. By the time the company officially goes bankrupt a year later, it is often just a hollow shell.
Okay, so we've established this violent cycle. Dying firms bleed out their best workers, and newborn firms rise up to dominate. But we still haven't answered the most important question.
Right. Where does the advantage come from?
Yeah. After a newborn firm survives the first year, where does its massive efficiency advantage actually come from? They don't have a secret R&D lab. They aren't inventing new types of hammers. How do they beat the giants?
This is where the New Zealand study transitions from being interesting to being truly groundbreaking.
Okay.
The answer is that new companies do not invent better workflows.
They don't.
No, they import them.
Yeah.
They literally bring the efficiency into their new offices inside the minds and muscle memory of the workers they hire.
Knowledge in the flesh.
Exactly. The researchers looked at the hiring trajectories of these hyper-efficient newborn firms. They wanted to see exactly where they were getting their personnel.
And what did the data reveal?
A massive 40% of their new hires come directly from other construction firms.
40%.
That is double the rate of normal established companies.
So they are actively poaching.
They are systematically draining the talent pool of their competitors.
Yeah.
And they aren't just doing this to fill out a roster. They are doing it to acquire what we can call meat-space knowledge transfer.
Meat-space knowledge transfer. I love that concept. Because in the digital world, if I want my computer to run a new process, I just download a piece of software.
Right.
But in the physical economy, workers don't just bring their physical strength to a new job site. They bring the invisible operational architecture of their former employer.
Yes. Consider a veteran site manager who spent the last 5 years working at a highly profitable commercial builder. Over those 5 years, he has absorbed hundreds of micro-efficiencies.
Right, little hacks and tricks.
He knows exactly how to stage lumber, so the framing crew isn't waiting. He knows which local vendors deliver concrete on time. He knows the optimal sequence for bringing in tradesmen to completely eliminate bottlenecks.
Plumbers first, then HVAC, then electricians.
Exactly. And the crucial thing is, he probably doesn't even realize he knows this.
It's not written down in a corporate manual.
No. It's just his baseline expectation for how a job site is supposed to run. It's in his muscle memory. So when the newborn startup hires him, they're not just paying for a guy to manage a schedule.
They are implicitly downloading the operational software of his previous highly successful employer directly into their own fragile new system.
And the researchers actually managed to quantify this transfer.
They put a number on it.
They did. They built a mathematical model to measure how much of the old company's efficiency bleeds into the new company simply through the movement of a single worker.
Wow.
They calculated a transfer coefficient of positive 0.32.
Okay, let's translate that coefficient into everyday concepts for the listener. What does a plus 0.32 actually mean for a business owner?
It means that if you hire a worker away from a highly efficient firm, roughly 1/3 of that former employer's distinct efficiency advantage travels with the worker.
1/3.
Yeah, and it is instantly injected into your daily operations. It acts almost like a beneficial virus.
The worker arrives, looks at how you're doing things, and says, actually, at my old job, we did it this way, and it was much faster.
And suddenly your entire company gets faster. The leverage this provides is staggering.
The hidden multiplier.
Exactly. The data show that if a worker's former employer had an efficiency score, just one standard deviation above average.
Meaning they weren't even necessarily the best company in the country, just a solidly good business.
Right. The new firm that hires that worker gets a pure zero-cost 0.6% boost to their overall productivity.
A 0.6% boost. Now, to someone outside the industry, that might sound like a rounding error.
It sounds tiny.
But in construction, it's everything. We talked earlier about those razor-thin profit margins. If your total net profit on a $10 million building is only $300,000, a free 0.6% efficiency boost across your entire operation is a massive windfall.
It is an absolute superpower because it costs you nothing.
You didn't have to buy a $1 million piece of machinery. You didn't hire an expensive consulting firm.
You just hired the right guy.
Yeah.
And your profit margin effectively expanded overnight. It is a fatal lever against your competition.
You can slowly bleed the inefficient firms dry because you are operating at a fundamentally higher level, fueled entirely by the stolen secrets of your rivals.
Yes.
But wait, I have to push back here.
Okay, go for it.
I'm looking at this from the perspective of a skeptic, or maybe just a pragmatic business owner. Isn't there a massive logical flaw in this theory?
You mean the sorting effect?
Yeah, the matching bias. Let's use a sports analogy. If I own a basketball team and I manage to hire LeBron James, my team is going to win more games.
Right.
My team's efficiency goes through the roof. But it's not because LeBron James brought over the secret management workflows of the Los Angeles Lakers. It's simply because LeBron James is a naturally gifted, elite individual.
That is the perfect analogy. And it is the exact vulnerability the research team knew they had to address.
Right. If I'm a smart boss running a good company, I naturally want to hire a smart, naturally gifted plumber. And that smart plumber probably used to work for another good company, because good companies like to hire smart plumbers. How can a mathematical equation possibly see inside a plumber's head and determine that he is transferring organizational knowledge rather than just being a naturally fast worker? How do we know the plumber isn't just the LeBron James of pipe fitting?
It's a fantastic question. And it gets to the heart of why this specific study is considered a landmark achievement.
Okay, tell me how they did it.
In a standard survey, you could never prove the difference. But because the researchers had the IBI, 12 years of continuous, unbroken tracking of every single individual across multiple jobs, they could employ a highly advanced statistical technique.
Okay, without using academic jargon, walk me through the logic of how that actually works, step by step. How do you mathematically strip away human talent?
Let's stick with your sports analogy. Imagine you want to test whether a specific brand of race car is truly faster than the others.
Okay.
If you put a champion driver in the car and he wins the race, you don't know if the car is fast or if the driver is just brilliant.
That's the sorting bias.
Exactly. To find the truth, you have to test that exact same champion driver in 10 different cars over several years. And you have to put 10 different amateur drivers into the car you were testing. By tracking the exact same individuals as they move across different environments over a long period, the math can isolate the baseline capability of the individual from the environment they are in.
Oh, wow. Because the data set tracks the plumber over 12 years, they know what his baseline LeBron James level of talent is, regardless of where he works.
Exactly. The equation mathematically neutralizes the worker's personal innate skill level. It essentially deletes the LeBron James factor from the data.
That is incredible.
And furthermore, it also deletes the good boss bias. It isolates the firm's inherent advantages. They strip the data down to the absolute bare metal.
And the only variable left standing was the specific leftover influence of the former employer's operational efficiency.
Yes.
And after they ran this grueling mathematical gauntlet, what happened?
The spillover survived?
It survived the math.
It completely survived. The data undeniably prove that even after you remove the worker's natural talent, and even after you account for how smart the new boss is, a measurable chunk of the old company's efficiency still transfers over.
It's real?
It is entirely real. It is not a sorting bias. Workers are genuinely acting as human flash drives, physically carrying operational knowledge from one site to another.
That is just a profound realization. It means the wealth of a nation's industry isn't just in its bank accounts or its patents. It is literally walking around in the boots of its workforce.
Yes.
But this leads us to a dangerous trap that a lot of modern companies fall into.
Oh, the corporate myth.
Yeah. If hiring workers from your direct competitors is an absolute superpower, what happens when a company tries to get clever? What happens when a management team decides they need to be innovative?
You are talking about the modern corporate obsession with cross-pollination.
Yes. Every business book and corporate influencer preaches this. We need to hire outside the box. We need fresh perspectives.
Let's stop hiring construction guys to run our construction company.
Right. Let's hire an executive from a tech firm to optimize our logistics, or a manager from a hospital to streamline our safety protocols. The theory is that outsiders bring revolutionary ideas.
It sounds great in a TED Talk.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does the New Zealand data say about that?
The data reveals what actually happens when you try to apply that theory in the gritty physical economy. And the result is a profound structural failure.
The failure.
The researchers measured what we can call the cross-industry penalty. Hiring workers whose previous jobs were completely outside the construction sector doesn't just fail to bring in useful new knowledge. It actively and measurably damages the firm.
How badly?
The efficiency spillover drops to a negative 3.9%.
Wait, really? A negative 3.9%?
Yes.
You are literally paying a premium salary to make your company worse. You are dragging your own operational efficiency backward just to have a fresh perspective in the room. Why does an outsider cause so much damage?
Because deep, traditional industries like construction have massive, invisible technical moats.
Technical moats.
Yeah. They are highly specific, high-stakes ecosystems with their own unspoken language. Let's use a vivid example. Imagine you hire an MBA who spent the last 5 years managing agile software development at a tech startup.
Okay, they're brilliant at organizing digital workflows.
Right. Now you put them in charge of a massive commercial concrete pour.
Oh, boy. Because in software, if you make a mistake, you just roll back the code, you hold a stand-up meeting and brainstorm a fix.
Exactly. But on a job site, when 30 cement trucks are lined up down the street and the humidity is altering the curing time of the foundation.
There is no time for an agile brainstorm. The concrete is getting hard.
Right. A veteran construction foreman knows how to read the weather, adjust the pour rate, and yell the right commands to the crew to prevent a million-dollar disaster. The tech manager doesn't just lack this knowledge. Their presence actively disrupts the unspoken rhythm of the experienced crew.
They require hand-holding. They ask questions when action is required.
The fresh perspective becomes a fatal bottleneck.
It fundamentally disproves the myth of universal management. You cannot just parachute a smart person into a complex physical industry and expect them to optimize it. The technical moat is just too deep.
Way too deep.
So if cross-pollination is a disaster and poaching employees from competitors is good, what is the ultimate weapon? Who is the single most valuable person you can bring into a new firm?
The data is incredibly clear on this. The ultimate efficiency weapon isn't a poached employee. It is the founder.
The founder.
Specifically, a founder who fits the profile of a working proprietor.
A working proprietor. Describe what that looks like in the context of this study.
We're talking about the boss who also swings a hammer.
Ah, I love that.
The founder who doesn't just sit in an air-conditioned trailer looking at spreadsheets. They are physically on the site, in the dirt, working directly alongside the crew.
Right.
The researchers found that if this specific type of founder has a deep personal background working in high-efficiency construction environments, their ability to transfer that knowledge into their new company is immediate and overwhelming.
Well, that makes intuitive sense. When a newly hired plumber suggests a better way to seal a pipe, the foreman might listen or he might not.
Right.
But when the person signing the paychecks is standing in the trench with you, showing you the exact angle to cut the pipe, it isn't a suggestion. It is a mandate.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The working proprietor dictates the operational reality. They build the DNA of the new company entirely around their imported elite knowledge.
The founder effect.
Yeah. The data show that the efficiency momentum carried by a working founder is the single most powerful force of knowledge transfer in the entire data set. It completely dwarfs the impact of regular employees.
And what I love about this study is that the researchers didn't just hide behind their math. They knew these numbers were radical, so they went out and looked for real-world corroboration.
They did. They cross-referenced their Skynet-like tracking data with actual business operations surveys.
Where business owners had to answer qualitative questions about their companies.
Yes, they asked the bosses directly about innovation.
Yeah.
And the results perfectly mirrored the mathematical models.
The bosses flat out admitted it.
They did. When a firm hired workers who came from highly efficient, highly productive competitors, the bosses reported that their rate of generating new innovative ideas spiked by 11%.
An 11% increase in actual innovation, directly attributed to hiring from the enemy.
It is essentially corporate espionage.
But it's entirely legal, completely normalized, and absolutely necessary for the sector to evolve. You aren't stealing blueprints, you're stealing the unspoken habits of success.
It solidifies the entire thesis. Humans are the ultimate vessels of progress. But this brings us to a crucial limitation of the study.
There's a limit.
This magic, this rapid meat-space knowledge transfer, does not work everywhere. There's a massive structural boundary where the transfer of efficiency simply dies.
Okay, let's explore that boundary. Where does the magic stop working?
It dies when things get too big. We can call it the scale problem.
The scale problem.
To understand the limits of their findings, the research team broke the massive construction sector down into specific subsectors. They wanted to see if a plumber transferring knowledge operated the same way as a civil engineer.
And they found a massive divergence, right?
A total divergence.
Yeah.
In the subsector of construction services, which encompasses the small residential builders, the independent electricians, the local plumbing companies with a boss and a fleet of 5 vans, the knowledge transfer was rampant.
It was explosive.
Yes. The human flash drives were plugging in and upgrading systems everywhere. But when the researchers looked at heavy civil engineering,
The massive corporate machines, the ones that build suspension bridges, lay down international airport runways, and construct 100-mile highways,
right, in that sector, the effect completely vanished.
it evaporated. Zero statistical evidence of knowledge transfer.
None.
Why? Why does a brilliant idea spread like wildfire in a small plumbing firm, but die instantly inside a massive engineering corporation?
They identified what we can call the dilution effect.
The dilution effect.
Big corporate structures are fundamentally immune to individual genius. Think about the physical mechanics of communication. We talked about the working proprietor.
Right.
In a small firm, the hierarchy is flat. A new worker gets hired, goes out on a job, and sees the boss struggling with a delayed materials delivery. The worker says, hey, at my old company, we use this specific local vendor for emergency supplies. They guarantee 2-hour delivery.
The boss says, give me their number.
Exactly. They try it, it works, and by noon, the company has permanently changed its supply chain workflow. The efficiency upgrade is instantaneous.
Because there is zero friction between the good idea and the execution of that idea.
Zero. Now let's put that exact same worker with an exact same brilliant idea inside a massive, heavy civil engineering corporation. What happens to the idea?
It gets suffocated by process.
Completely suffocated. The worker notices a flaw in how the asphalt delivery is sequenced for a highway project. Who do they tell? They can't tell the CEO.
They tell their immediate foreman.
Right. The foreman agrees, but he doesn't have the authority to change the vendor contract. So the foreman writes a field report.
Which goes to a regional middle manager.
And the middle manager puts it on the agenda for a logistics committee meeting next month. The committee reviews it, but notes that the current vendor has a 5-year locked-in contract negotiated by the corporate procurement office.
So to change vendors, they would need a risk assessment and legal approval.
And so the idea is buried under 5 layers of bureaucracy and dies silently in a filing cabinet. The worker never brings up a good idea again because it's not worth the effort.
It fundamentally proves that big corporate disease is a real, measurable phenomenon. Giant firms systematically dilute human potential.
They're designed for predictability and risk mitigation, not for rapid adaptation. They are too rigid to absorb the virus of efficiency.
Which means the small firms, the chaotic, churning, highly volatile small businesses are the agile sponges of the economy. They're the ones soaking up the secrets of the dead and using them to pull the entire industry forward.
That is the ultimate takeaway from the New Zealand IDI dataset.
So let's zoom out. Let's take everything we have learned from this granular look at New Zealand construction workers and apply it to the bigger picture. Let's bring this right to the listener's everyday life.
I think we need to.
We started this deep dive by asking why the global economy is stalling. Why are we experiencing a productivity paradox? Through this data, we have uncovered the invisible flesh and blood network that keeps human progress moving.
Yes.
It relies on high job churn. It relies on the death of inefficient companies. It relies on the continuous, frictionless theft of ideas through the movement of free individuals.
It is a brutally efficient, constantly churning ecosystem that constantly purifies itself.
But look at the world you and I actually live in today. Look at the policies our governments champion and the structures our financial markets reward.
No.
We live in a world that is absolutely obsessed with enforcing stability.
It's the opposite of what works.
Yeah, it really is. What do we see everywhere we look? We see relentless corporate mega mergers. Every industry is consolidating into 3 or 4 massive bureaucratic giants. The exact structures that we just proved are mathematically immune to knowledge transfer.
We see the rise of aggressive non-compete clauses. Even for entry-level workers, companies are deploying legal firewalls to physically trap human beings.
Ensuring they cannot take their accumulated knowledge to a newborn startup. They are literally outlawing the human flash drive.
And we see a culture of massive government bailouts.
Yes. Whenever a large company starts to fail, whenever the shadow of death appears, politicians rush in with taxpayer money to prop them up because they are terrified of the job losses.
They are actively preserving the zombie firm,
Yes.
stopping Schumpeter's creative destruction from taking its natural, necessary course.
We are terrified of the 60% churn. We want everyone to be perfectly safe, perfectly secure, with a job that lasts forever.
And this research forces us to ask a terrifying question. In our desperate pursuit of a safe, stable, risk-free economy, are we accidentally severing the very arteries of knowledge?
Are we choking our own future? Think about it. If economic vitality fundamentally requires that violent 60% churn, if innovation absolutely depends on workers freely carrying secrets away from dying giants to feed the newborn startups, what happens when we freeze the system?
It's a scary thought.
If we successfully outlaw the churn and protect every failing company, do we guarantee a future of permanent, inescapable stagnation? Are we slowly engineering our own decline?
It's a fundamental rewiring of how we understand the health of our society.
It really is.
That's right.
Just something for you to think about the next time you hear a politician promise to save jobs, or the next time you see a small, handwritten "We're hiring" sign outside a dusty construction site. That sign might just be the most important engine of progress we have left.